Financial independence is when you're able to stop working, quit your job, and live completely off your investments for the rest of your life. Which sounds great, except how do I know when I've got enough money? Ask someone how much they'll need to retire or how much they need to be financially independent, and most people will probably just shrug their shoulders and throw out a random number. In fact, Bloomberg just asked investors from around the world how much money they would need to retire comfortably.
$737,000, that's what I need. That is what I need.
The average number of people gave as the answer to that question was between $3 and $5 million. Now, are these people just giving an aspirational number of what they'd like to have? Or do they really think they need between $3 and $5 million to be able to retire and live comfortably? As we saw in the video where we took a look at the net worths of American households and broke it down by age groups, we saw that only 12% of all Americans have a net worth of $1 million or more, and only 4.5% have $3 million or more. Let's hope that doesn't mean 95% of the population is never going to get to retire. What that more likely means, though, is that all these people answering this Bloomberg survey actually have no idea how much money they actually need to retire, be financially independent, and live comfortably off their investments. And how can we blame them? I can't possibly try to predict what my living expenses are going to be 20 years from now. And last year, the S&P 500 dropped 20%, and inflation has been over 6% for a year and a half now. How can you possibly predict or prepare for something like that? Thankfully, you can prepare for it. And it's a lot easier to figure out how much money you need to be financially independent than you may think. And in this video, I am going to show you exactly how to calculate that seemingly mystical number, some possible flaws with the method of doing so, and steps you can take to actually get an accurate financial independence number for yourself, no matter what age you want to call it quits from the workforce. So subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and let's get into figuring out how much money we need to be financially independent. We've established that calculating what your expenses may be years or even decades in the future seems like an impossible task. Yet it's also one of the key components for figuring out how early you can retire and how much money you need to do so. Thankfully, there is a super easy, simple way to come up with that financial independence number. All you have to do is take your annual spending, everything you spend over the course of an entire year, multiply that number by 25, bing bang blow, you've got your number. For example, if I spend $50,000 in a given year, I multiply 50,000 by 25, and I come up with $1.25 million as the amount that I need to retire. And many of you that have some familiarity with the financial independence retire early community may recognize this as just reverse engineering the famous 4% rule. The basis of this rule is that you should be able to spend 4% of your total portfolio every year to fund your lifestyle and never run out of money, even in the worst case scenario. Because historically speaking, the stock market generally returns around 7 to 8% per year on average. And the thinking is that you can spend 4% of your portfolio because on average your portfolio will be growing by more than that amount to allow you to keep pulling from it each consecutive year. But until recently, bond yields have been close to zero for 20 to 25 years. The stock market just dropped 20% last year, and inflation has been soaring to its highest rates since the early 1980s. Is the 4% rule even still relevant in today's market? And as with most rules in personal finance, we should tread lightly, because there's never really a one-size-fits-all approach to anything dealing with your money. And the 4% rule definitely has some problems that are worth a closer look. First off, the 4% rule assumes a 30-year retirement, a 30-year period where you're going to need to be living off your investments. The study that created the 4% rule looked at every rolling 30-year period from 1926 onward and found that even in the worst case scenarios, 4% was the amount you could safely withdraw from your portfolio and not run out of money. But what if your retirement is going to be longer than 30 years, either by way of retiring early or simply living longer? This is going to greatly increase your chances of running out of money if you blindly follow the 4% rule. The 4% rule was also calculated on US stock market returns and bond market returns from 1926 to 1976, a time period where the United States rose to be the #1 economy in the entire world. So this produced a historically strong period of returns for US stocks, and was also a period that generally saw pretty high bond yields to complement it. And we've already seen over the past couple of decades that bond yields have been extremely low for long periods at a time. And what if the US stock market can't produce the same type of returns going forward that it did in the past? And before you think this is just me playing devil's advocate or just being a pessimist, the original creator of the 4% rule has even gone on record saying that based on current market conditions, a more conservative withdrawal approach may be needed. So maybe it's better not to think of it as the 4% rule, but more of a guideline.
The code is more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
With all that said though, I still think the 4% rule has plenty of use as a starting spot to get your financial independence or retirement number. However, if you want to retire earlier, plan on living longer, or just want to safeguard against the absolute worst case scenarios, there are a few steps you can take to improve upon the 4% rule. First, you can just simply reduce the amount you're going to spend. Reduce the percentage you're going to withdraw from the portfolio every year. Using a number like 3% or 2.5% can build in extra cushion to ensure that your portfolio sustains you for a longer retirement time frame. For instance, if I use a 3% withdrawal rate instead of 4% on the example I gave you in the intro to this video, a person who's going to need $50,000 a year to live off of would need a portfolio of $1.65 million instead of $1.25 million. Secondly, you can do something you probably already do anyways, and that is vary your spending. The 4% rule was calculated assuming you would robotically spend 4% of your portfolio, increasing with inflation every year like clockwork. But that's not how we operate in the real world. Even now, however far away you are from being financially independent, however many years you have left to retirement, when the economy is doing better, you probably spend more freely. You don't stress about taking that big trip or getting the extra guac on your Chipotle burrito. But when the economy is down, we all naturally cut back. You might take a road trip closer to home instead of a stint in the Caribbean for your vacation, and we're just not going to buy as many eggs when they're $8 a dozen. You get the idea. So just factoring in some rational behaviors and some good financial habits will help bring the 4% rule back into having a lot more relevance. So feel free to use the 4% rule as a guideline to set your number for financial independence or the amount you're going to need to save up for retirement. Or if you're more comfortable, drop it down to 3 or 2.5% if you feel better about that. And if you really want to get in the weeds crunching some numbers, I'll link to some great free calculators in the description of this video that you can use to get your true target number based on your current investments and your real life spending and saving habits. Be sure to drop a like on this video if you found any of that useful. Check out this video next. Thank you for watching this one, and I'll see you next time.